Bros podcast, the only podcast that is perfectly balanced as all things should be. My name is Isaac Edlin. I am your host tonight, and I have two other lovely fellow Infinity Bros with me. Number one, in your hearts, and the first one I'm going to announce is Jarret Curtis.
Aw. Thanks, buddy.
How you doing, Jarret?
Yeah. Oh, I'm great. I'm glad to be back. I think people forgot about me, or maybe thought I was pulling a Zane, but here I am.
It's true. It's true. People may have forgotten about you, but you are in fact here, and you are in fact still an Infinity Bro. So,
right.
Welcome to the Infinity Bros podcast. Might we call you a guest at this point?
Oh gosh,
I don't know. Maybe that's up for Max to decide.
That hurts a little bit, but you know what? Wait, why is Max the one deciding?
We're pulling the Zane card on you now. We're calling you a guest because it's been so long.
I think we let the fans decide. Scott Higa, send us an angry worded letter. Am I a guest at this point, or have I redeemed myself enough?
If you have feelings about this, why don't you comment on the post that this episode drops on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or
YouTube
TikTok, or YouTube, literally anything that the Infinity Bros are on, which is on we have a lot of different social media platforms. So check those out. Number two, definitely not in your hearts, because I would say that he's number one in everybody's hearts. I did already say that Jarret was number one, but I think a lot of people are very, very fond of Robbie Sauter. How you doing, Robbie?
Survived a week-long hiatus from work to be with my kids and be sick. So just happy to be here. I know some people think, oh, you got a couple days off of work. No, it's being sick and being with your kids who are also sick. That's
extra work.
That's a level of hell, I think.
Yeah.
That's one of the levels of hell. I don't know where exactly that goes, but it's up there.
People think
Down there.
Initially, oh yeah, I had a week off. With kids, it's not really a week off.
No.
Especially when you're sick. When you're sick, it's like, oof, man, I feel for you. And I think a lot of people have been going through it. So, man,
oh, it's rough. It is
rough.
rough.
Glad you're feeling a little bit better. Robbie initially wasn't planning on joining us tonight, but glad you are here.
Feeling good enough. I legit, though, before we got on this pod, was like, I forgot we're doing a pod. I was about to take some NyQuil and go to bed. It was like 8:50. It was like 8:50, and Isaac goes, "I'm going to open up a Zencaster room," and I was like, "Oh shoot!"
Let me tell you. Okay, let me tell you the secret, because I pulled this too many times on our episodes, and on the only time that I've been on Mike's on Mike's podcast. Poor guy. I listened back to that episode and I feel so bad. It's so horrible. But the secret is you drink a ton of espresso and NyQuil together.
That sounds like an awful combo.
And that is a feeling you'll be chasing for the rest of your life.
Man,
it makes for a horrible podcast.
I feel like you're the one that's most often like somehow inebriated while we're on the podcast, and it's like 99.9% coffee, but then
I don't drink. Yeah, it's just NyQuil and coffee.
Yeah. It's all coffie. I mean, you just load up on coffee, and then a little swig of NyQuil in there, and there you go. We've got caffeinated Jarret, just rip roaring, ready to go on the Infinity Bros podcast. So, welcome. And for those of you who are new to our podcast, make sure you check out theinfinitybros.com for all of your Infinity Bros needs. Got some sweet merch that you can check out. Got a blog called The Daily Snap for all the latest comics and shows and things we've been thinking, and a bunch of other. You can also check out our podcast episodes of the Infinity Bros podcast there. So
while we're shilling, we've been, and specific props to Robbie for this, but we've been doing pretty good on YouTube with our episodes.
Robbie's been cutting up some podcast segments and doing some awesome work on YouTube. So make sure you go check that out.
In an audio medium, I'm going to pull a major faux pas, but it's to drive you guys to the YouTube so you can see this.
Oh no!
This is what I've done in the last 3 hours. This full of coffee. Shout out to Mini World Timer.
I was just going to say,
tea,
what kind of coffee you drinking there, Jarret?
So I did their black breakfast tea, which is heavily caffeinated, and then a cup full of coffee. So
it's 9:42 p.m.
It is nighttime. So
Jarret's always like, oh yeah, I brewed a pot of coffee at like 7 p.m. and here we are, like, you know, a whole pot of coffee later.
So if you see me fidgeting with stuff, it's because I gotta outlet this somehow.
There we go. And we might need you to talk a mile a minute because we've got a lot of stuff to cover tonight. Do you guys see that? See that?
That was segue? Beautiful the way you melded that together. I love it.
Yeah, that's great.
There you go. We've got a lot of things to talk about tonight. Number 1 is the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special that just dropped on Disney Plus, and number 2 is the Andor finale that has been out for, gosh, has it been like 4 or 5 days now?
Yeah, last week.
And I mean, we've been talking about Andor the last few weeks on this podcast. So many things to talk about with that. So we are going to review both of these. And if you're not familiar with our rating system, make sure you listen to this.
Here on the Infinity Bros podcast, everything is ranked from a 0 to 6 point scale. 0 meaning horrible, and 6 meaning absolutely excellent. If all of the Infinity Bros rank something a 6, it gets an Infinity Step.
So now that we got that out of the way, we are going to give a spoiler or rating a little bit later, but I wanted to kind of talk to you guys about this Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special before we get into that. Robbie, number 1 thing here. Yeah. What did you think when it was announced that they were going to do a Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special? Like right off the top of your head.
Off the top of my head, I was like, there's no way they're going to get like the actual Guardians. So my mind went quickly to like, oh, it's going to be like animated. That's, or like claymation. Claymation, I think would have actually been like a real possibility. Like James Gunn seems like a guy that would like want to go the claymation route eventually. So at first I did not think we were going to get a live action thing because I would love to know how much this costs to make. But I was really surprised. Right. I was really happy they were getting it because we haven't got anything like that. So
right.
I was happy to hear it.
The MCU is expanding. We've got a holiday special now. Jarret, same thing. What was your thoughts when it was announced? And then like leading up to it, I mean, it kind of almost got forgotten about, I feel like, until like a couple of weeks before. Then Disney Plus is like, oh, hey, this is coming out on November 25th. And we were all like, oh, crap. Yeah, forgot about that. That's coming out still. What was your thoughts on the holiday special, Jarret?
Yeah, I think like Robbie said, I think we knew this was going to be super weird because James Gunn doesn't do anything normal. And it was really, I knew it was going to be campy, but I thought it was going to be a lot more of like sort of how the Community holiday episodes play out, where it really like tries to spin on the idea of like the Christmas season and doing these different mediums, which they kind of did a little bit. And we'll talk about that. But
yeah,
I pictured something completely different. And I think I was still delighted in spite of that. And like you said, I totally forgot that this was a thing. And then I think just before you talked about us reviewing it for the podcast, I got an ad on YouTube and I'm like, holy crap. I didn't even know this was still happening because of, him going to DC and all that. But yeah, I was excited to see it.
Yeah, man, it came up so fast. All of a sudden it was just like, oh yeah, we got that coming out in a couple of weeks. So here we go. And obviously very well timed because it is now Christmas season. It came out the day after Thanksgiving, which, for us normal people who celebrate Christmas, the day after Thanksgiving, it was perfect timing. So
right.
I know Max and Mark are both guys who like to start, decorating and celebrating the day after Halloween, which shame on them for.
I think it was before Halloween. They were playing
for Max
Carey.
For sure. Max is like on Christmas, like when it turns like September, he's like, all right, Christmas season. As soon as like, the leaves start changing, he's already thinking Christmas. So shame on them though for not giving proper reverence to one of the premier holidays, Thanksgiving. So
right.
Yeah.
Football and food. Come on. Are you even American if you skip football and food?
The best meal holiday, like Christmas, I feel like you still do have some solid meals, but like
sure,
it doesn't measure up to Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving, like the food is the central focus of the holiday.
Though this Christmas, I think we actually do have NFL games. So like,
true.
If that keeps happening, then I could probably just, Thanksgiving's a nice day off.
Christmas Day games for a while, haven't they? I mean, I guess
it's not always. I don't think.
I feel like I remember watching football on Christmas a lot of years.
I don't think it's a yearly thing, but if it becomes a yearly thing, then it's just going to be awesome days off.
I'm down.
The more like entire days I can spend just watching football, the better.
Yeah, I agree. But anyways, let's dive into this Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special. We are going to put the spoiler review or warning right here. If you have not watched this yet, we're going to be spoiling the whole thing. And we're might as well, since we're giving this right now, we're going to be spoiling the whole season of Andor as well. So if you have not seen either of those, make sure you pause this episode, go watch those, and come back and listen. So here is the spoiler warning.
This is...
Prepare yourself.
An Infinity Bros.
Prepare yourself.
Spoiler. Warning.
You have been warned. If you get spoiled from here on out, it's your own fault. So, guys, we're just gonna go straight out with our rating and tell us what you thought. Robbie, go ahead.
Oh, okay. The holiday special is a 6 out of 6. Like, off the top of my head, just finishing it, I was like, this is a yearly tradition now. Like, it's a 40-minute episode. It's like, it has everything you want. There isn't, I watched it without my kids first. I was like, I don't know where this could go because, it's James Gunn, and James Gunn kind of has a track record for taking some things a little far, a little edgy. So I was like, me and Jess will watch this without the kids. And goodness, after that first song, like, I was like, this is the freaking best. Yeah, this is so freaking good. So I was hooked right away. I loved everything they did. I loved that there was that like animation feel. I still feel like they should have gotten claymation. But that's just how I feel.
That would have been fantastic.
Like, claymation and Christmas just goes together to me.
It really does. You're not wrong.
It's just so festive. So yeah, it's 6 out of 6. I don't have any complaints about any of it, honestly. I feel like there wasn't anything that like lagged on or dragged on. Like, it actually did have some emotional hits for the Guardians. Like, there's just so much good in it. It just gave me so much joy. It made me like 100% prepared for the holiday season.
Jarret, what'd you think?
Yeah, I mean, part of me wants to give this a 5 out of 6 because they talked about Kevin Bacon in all of his movies, and not once did they mention Tremors. And so like that hurts a little bit. Know your audience, James Gunn. But Jimmy, can I call you Jimmy? That being said, though, no, it was phenomenal. I think the things that we love about Christmas specials is how like campy and sort of like bad in a good way they were. And I think there's a version of this that tries too hard to make it that. And if that were the case, if they tried like just a little bit harder to make it more cheesy and more campy, like the old Star Wars holiday special, then it would fall flat. But I think it's the nice balance of like trying to capture that feel without forcing it. And I think it played off really well. And like, not for nothing, it was very, very lighthearted, very joyful. And like, I didn't just push air through my nose and type LOL. Like, I actually laughed out loud at certain points. And I loved it. I thought it was fantastic.
So what was your actual rating?
6 out of 6.
It was 6 out of 6. Okay.
Yeah. Well, you just walked around. Yeah, you just walked around. Is it a 5 or is it a 6? Like, what is it?
I was like, I needed
a 5.5. Is it
straight up? What is it?
It's a 6, but I am going to send hate mail to good old Jimmy Gunn for not
for the
Tremors.
Yeah. Understandable. Zane, I'm sure, was livid.
Oh, just livid. He probably turned it off.
Yeah, gave it a 1 out of 6. Fantastic.
Next year they're getting Reba McEntire.
Oh, so I'm gonna actually be the damper and pull this down a little bit.
Oh, please.
It's not down. It's still a 5 out of 6. It is fantastic. It's great. This is exactly what I expected from this. Fantastic, just hilarious, lighthearted, and you kind of like, I think Jarret, you said it kind of tugged on your emotional heartstrings a little bit in some parts there, which I wasn't really expecting. The one thing that I kind of am like wasn't really buy-in was, I don't know if it's the relationship between Mantis and Drax, like, that I've just never really liked it.
Sure.
Like, they have funny parts and stuff, but man, I found myself like really just kind of like
It's a little like humor for children, but yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like they're just screaming at each other randomly for half of that first part. Like it just kind of was like, okay, whatever. But it is meant to be like a lighthearted, like, Christmas special. It's a holiday special. Sure. Like that's exactly what we wanted from it. And it was fantastic. Like all the Christmas themes, incredible. Kevin Bacon, mwah, chef's kiss. Right. That was like, wow, I can't believe they actually got Kevin Bacon to agree to do that, number one.
Did you see that apparently he didn't even, like, they didn't even talk to him when they made the first, like, trailer or whatever?
Really?
Like, yeah, apparently that he said this in an interview. Like, he was like, I had no idea about this. And they were like, they want to get Kevin Bacon or whatever. He was like, then they called me after that or something like that.
So, like, what if they had not gotten Kevin Bacon?
I don't know.
What would they have done? Just like put some. No, what they should have done is just put some other random.
It would have been like they would have got like Matt Damon again. They would have got like Matt Damon from all the Loki movies and put him. Yeah.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, that would have been awesome. But yeah, I don't know. That part to me was like after we got through that first like 15 minutes of them like doing their thing, I thought the rest of it was incredible. Yeah. Kevin Bacon. Oh my gosh, he just made me smile the whole time. Like he genuinely seems like a nice guy. And I know he's still being an actor, even though he's acting as Kevin Bacon in this special.
Yeah.
But like, it was like a little MCU Hallmark movie condensed into like 44 minutes, honestly. Like that's what it was. And James Gunn did it. He did it. So kudos. But here's the thing. As an MCU feature, I would not put this like if I were including it in a giant list of MCU titles.
Oh, sure.
It wouldn't be a top 10. If I was ranking a list of Christmas movies or specials, it probably wouldn't be. Maybe it'd crack the top 10. It wouldn't be top 5 for sure.
That's an interesting idea.
It's not high on that list.
I would probably watch this over like half of the MCU shows.
Like TV shows or movies?
Like the TV shows.
TV shows,
because I can't compare this to the movies. It's only 42 minutes.
Yeah, sure. Right. That's true. Yeah. I mean,
like,
you're not.
I would rather watch this than like an entire season of one of those, of most of those shows.
I don't necessarily disagree with that.
Yeah,
but I think
I'm having a hard time arguing against this.
You're making some very good points, but it kind of like hit in the middle of both of those somewhere. So for that reason, it kind of like. It doesn't necessarily, and it will be like, this is, you're so right about the family tradition thing. Like I'm going to be watching this every year. Like that's like, it was so charming and just lighthearted and just really fun. It was just a really fun time. And 44 minutes, like they fit a lot into that 44 minutes. Yeah. I thought it was, and the pacing is fantastic for it being 44 minutes. Like it's exactly what we wanted it to. I absolutely loved the animation parts of it at the beginning and the end when
I'm gonna make the weirdest comparison, but like I feel like you guys will understand, and if anyone listening to this, go look up. It's called like Elden Ring NPCs, or it's the chest high wall one. Okay, so go look up Elden Ring from an NPC's perspective. It's that animation style and the way that these like characters interact with each other. Drax and Mantis, I feel like is the same level of writing that the characters in that have.
That's awesome.
I don't know why. That's the first thing my mind jumped to when I saw the animation. Is I was like, this has been done before.
Yeah, that's awesome. It had some really great themes, and I love how they included all of the Guardians in this. Like it felt like I feel like that's something I missed, is we haven't really seen a lot of Guardians since Guardians 2.
Right.
You know, we didn't really see a whole lot of them I mean, I guess we got like little glimpses in other shows and things, and we got
Thor: Love and Thunder. We got like, we thought we were going to get a lot more.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to point out. Yeah. Jarret, like a couple days ago, was like, "Oh man, I got to watch Thor: Love and Thunder before I watch the holiday special," and I was like, "No, you don't.
No, you don't.
No, Jarret, you don't really need to watch that. It's okay. It
doesn't change anything."
So, but yeah, we got a lot less of the Guardians in Love and Thunder than we thought we were going to get. So I loved coming back into that like section of the MCU, and this actually makes me really pumped for Guardians 3, which I don't think is coming out for another year or plus maybe, but
and that's
still
James Gunn's last
that's his
property
last
with MCU
film.
right?
Yeah. So, and I think he has actually said that this will be his last Guardians film for the MCU. So now that he's the head of DC, it's pretty unlikely that he ever makes another film for Marvel again. But I mean, he specifically said this is the last Guardians movie that he makes. So who knows? But yeah, I think now that he's the head of DC, it would be pretty impressive for him to come and direct another Marvel feature or film or anything like that. But
that'd be interesting.
Maybe with these special presentations, less time commitment, who knows? But yeah, I don't know, guys. I thought this was just a charming, perfect holiday addition to the MCU, and it's something the MCU needed. Honestly, like it
was just fun and lighthearted.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things, and I guess you can make the argument that Phase 4.
I was just gonna say, is this one of the best Phase 4 products? Is this a top 5? Is this a top 5 Phase 4 product?
Yikes!
Could it be a top 5? Could it be top 5?
I don't know.
It probably is, but in my mind,
up there.
It probably
because now I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, oh gosh.
Actually, I mean, Robbie,
actually,
I have
Shang-Chi is up there.
Mm-hmm.
Spider-Man's up there. Yeah. I think Werewolf by Night is up there.
Moon Knight for me. Hawkeye.
Moon Knight for you.
Loki. I feel like Loki
is up. Loki is a top 5.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be you'd have to be a real, like, Christmas would have to be your thing, I think, to be top 5. Sure. But if
Christmas is your thing, Hawkeye plays on some of those things.
I think if we were making a weird list and called it but if we were making a weird list and it was like top 8, I think it's top 8 on most people's list.
Yeah, I guess you probably have to include it in there. But I think, like, if you're just doing off of like the Disney Plus stuff, it definitely fits. Like, I think I liked Moon Knight and Loki better than it, but to me, I think everything else. I think everything else is probably below it. Yeah, Werewolf by Night is above it too. I think that was probably my favorite Disney Plus thing. But man, yeah.
If you're just doing Disney Plus, it's definitely a top 5.
It's definitely top 5 in Disney Plus. I'm sure when we finally, Mark and Max probably did this, but they probably actually ranked all of the Disney Plus stuff when they finished the She-Hulk finale. But that's interesting. That's an interesting suggestion. And I think it has a place in the MCU because, what other Hallmark features do we have in the MCU?
I want James Gunn to do an actual Hallmark movie, like with the formula and everything of like
make
small
it
town
a Hallmark movie with characters that are not like superheroes. Like they're in the MCU.
An actual Hallmark movie. Yes.
Oh my gosh. I actually love that idea.
So you don't want superheroes? Because I was thinking, like, because if you want to go Hallmark, do you make someone fall in love with, like, Nebula? And then, like, at the end, it's like, my dad was Thanos.
Oh, there you go.
Like, and that's how you, that's
the classic.
That's the big, like,
it's
shock or whatever. Instead of my dad is Santa, it's my dad was Thanos.
Who, like, left... got big with this huge company in a big city and like has to go back for Christmas.
The Chitauri are his
own. Falls in love with
gosh.
Wow, James Gunn, you listen to this? This is your next holiday special.
So if James Gunn makes one of these in the next couple of years, we know where he got the idea.
Just give us $1 million in royalty. Like let us make this movie now.
Yeah. We got this. Gosh, Infinity Bros Productions. We're on top of it. Any other comments? Do you guys want to talk about the Guardians of the Galaxy?
I have to talk about it.
Okay.
One, beefed out Groot was phenomenal. Boy was out here looking.
That was interesting.
That Robbie made me was uncomfortable.
It's me, but
I was like, "What is happening over here?"
Robbie's like, "He looks beefier than me. I don't think I like this."
Going through a bulk stage. Goodness.
It was just DK Metcalf in a suit, and 2,
it wasn't even CG. It was just DK Metcalf.
Just DK Metcalf in a costume. And 2, I cannot tell you how much I loved that Rocket got the arm. I was like,
"Oh my gosh, that was fantastic!"
That was great.
Oh my gosh,
brilliant. But that's all.
That was actually one of the moments that I like. I think I audibly made a noise when that happened. Like I laughed or something because that was fantastic. Oh my gosh, when that happened, and he had like tears in his eyes.
Yeah.
Like, thank you.
He got it.
The best gift anybody's ever given me. Oh my gosh, so good.
It. But no, the other things you got to touch on, like the Yondu, like, and Peter Quill's those touching moments, like those were huge, and like you did not expect the emotional hits to come, but it's like he gave him that little guy to go on his dash, and then like in like Guardians of the Galaxy he has like a million of them, so my mind I was like, oh, Peter probably gives him one of those every single year,
or
probably. Something like that. So it's like, oh, that's so sweet. And then I'm
choked up talking about it right now.
Choked up. I'm going back to the beginning song was so freaking good.
Oh, it was phenomenal.
I will say too,
freaking good.
I loved that they used the beginning number. Incredible, amazing that they did that. But they also used like 2 or 3 non-traditional Christmas songs. In a lot of, and then Kevin Bacon sings and does a number at the end, like amazing. But Kevin like Bacon's they use some really non-traditional Christmas songs, which I really enjoyed, because James Gunn is like, the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. He uses these well-known 70s, 80s songs I mean, they played perfectly into the movies, but like they could have been used as like a cheap, hey, look, we got this popular music and stuff like that. And I think they worked, so it didn't have that effect. But I'm glad that he went a different direction with
Michael Bublé would have been like perfect for this. Like they would have just brought Michael Bublé in somehow as well.
He gets captured as well.
Yeah, they just throw him in there,
or he's an alien Michael Bublé.
Yeah. And I know you didn't really like the Mantis and Drax like team up thing, which was kind of odd, but like I actually kind of loved it.
Although the writing was just a hair cheesy.
But like that's both of those characters. Neither of those characters have good writing because they're not supposed to. They're supposed to be kind of dopey.
I think that's what it was really, is that like these are meant to be side characters for a reason. Yeah. And when they are pushed into the spotlight together, it honestly just didn't work for me. And that's okay. Like I thought the special itself was great. So
it did kept feeling like they like didn't realize, like they forgot like they had superpowers a few times, because like Mantis was like, can you throw me over the
and then they jump and the next scene
the next scene they're jumping around like in the house like a crazy person.
How do we get over this like 8-foot gate?
I
don't understand.
Or then
how do we do this
when Drax is punching the robot dressed man's, like that guy is dead. Like his head should have splattered after one punch,
and they just casually walk away and are taking pictures with people still, and
so I
love that Cosmo's in this. I don't know if
that was cool.
Cosmo's great.
Actually I should probably have gotten that up, but like forget who played that part, but she did a wonderful job.
I just looked at it. It's Maria Baklava, who I'd never heard about before, but apparently she was in
neither have I.
movie.
But she did great. I love that. I would honestly love if she had a future role in.
I didn't know Cosmo
Guardians.
was a girl either. I've been reading that character in comics forever, and it's always been like an old Russian man voice in my head. But
in the Guardians of the Galaxy game, it's definitely a male voice.
Why is it always an old Russian man voice? It's
well, Cosmo's an
actual Cosmo's an actual
Russian
dog who was shot into space.
All of the they have the Soviet Union like patches and stuff like that on the cosmonaut suit. But in the Guardians of the Galaxy film, it's a dude. So, or not film, sorry, the video game. So I've always thought it was a dude too, but like, hey, I mean, it obviously doesn't change anything. So whatever.
Okay, so I knew Cosmo, like I knew there was an actual Russian dog that was shot into space. So apparently it was a girl dog. Her name was Laika, and so Cosmo is a girl. Canonically, I guess.
There you go. All right, cool. Good to know. Right. We're learning things on the.
We didn't have Zane, so somebody had to.
Somebody had to Google that real quick.
Actually,
so I had to pretend
like
I knew it all
for stepping into that role.
Yeah,
I thought you did a wonderful job. You'll never replace Zane.
It's faster at Google than me. I know.
Thumbs of Thunder, and he'll always be the one that Googles everything the fastest. But
hey, quick question. Hold on. Quick
formidable...
pause. No, stop, Isaac. Quick pause. Do you type with your thumbs?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay.
Is that? That's like.
But on the phone you do,
isn't it?
Okay.
On the phone you do.
Yeah, I was just picturing him like typing like this.
I've never. Isaac,
thumbs of thunder.
Like thumbs of thunder is
texting,
okay.
I've never heard anyone say thumbs of thunder. That's not a common phrase.
It's probably not.
I
a common phrase.
It's something
the
new.
Throwback is it's in a Newsboys song in a
thumbs of thunder.
Thrive the album. It's
really?
a phrase on. I'm trying to remember what song it is.
That would
Google
make
it
no
sense. Use your thumbs
when
of
did
thunder
that come
to
out?
prove to us that it's real.
It's like 2000 something. I don't know.
People weren't typing on phones at that point. Why did they have thumbs of thunder?
I don't know.
There's so many questions.
That's what I always thought it meant, but maybe that was.
No, I mean,
that's very confusing. I'm very confused now.
The Fat of the Land, song by Newsboys.
All right.
What year?
Pop off,
this is so off the track of the podcast right now.
Let's see.
This does not get cut out on YouTube.
Dang,
right? We're keeping all of this.
Yeah, the only people that were doing that were had Blackberries.
Okay, here's the line.
Okay,
get your pager on because you know my number. I'm a wireless wonder. Got thumbs of thunder. Get your
there it
pager
is. It's a
pager.
Is
the first one.
Wow,
pager.
That's brilliant. That's amazing.
Wonderful.
I bet you Scott Higa still has a pager.
2002.
That age, they nailed it though. Because now thumbs of thunder is that actually makes sense.
So it's a real phrase. I didn't make that up.
You should say that all the time, make that a thing.
Seam's got thumbs of thunder. Now
we should
that's what we call him now. Thumbs of thunder.
Oh, dude, I'm way ahead of you. I already changed his name.
I already changed his name in the group chat.
We need I
love you,
this is just for the podcast. This is probably for YouTube and the podcast. Max can edit this out, but we need a 5-minute in every single episode thumbs of thunder where we prove something wrong. Instead of actually it's
that could
thumbs
be our
of thunder
fact-checking segment at the end of the podcast when Zane goes through
it's
Google's
time
everything that we
for
said.
Thumbs of thunder.
Oh my gosh. I absolutely love that.
That was ridiculous.
Right.
Off the rails.
Off the rails. Here we are. It would be an episode of the Infinity Bros podcast without us going on the rails at least once or twice. So there we are. We checked one box. And we're going to move on to another box. And that box is Andor. Well, we already gave a spoiler warning, so I'm not going to do that again. But let's talk about Andor, which is the Star Wars show debuted on Disney Plus this year. Just finished up the finale last Wednesday. And holy moly, guys. This is the show in 2022 that nobody expected to do as well as it has. And for whatever, however you hold this show, if you thought it was the best show ever, if you didn't really like it so much, you kind of have to admit that this really was an incredible, it was an incredible addition to the Star Wars universe because of many things that we've talked about on the Infinity Bros podcast previously. Mark and I specifically talked about how this doesn't really feel like a Star Wars show, honestly. You watch those first probably 6 episodes and there are not that many Star Wars elements in it, really. They're obviously the main theme is the formation of the rebellion, but beyond that,
can I talk about this real quick actually?
Because absolutely, go for it.
I don't know if you guys have seen this, but this is a dialogue that people are having like crazy right now. So the big thing is there's this guy called Star Wars Theory or whatever, who is like a Jay Stubes type for Star Wars stuff. One of the big.
Oh no, is this the bricks and screws guy?
Yeah,
it's the bricks and screws.
So he's losing his mind over how this doesn't count as Star Wars because they have bricks and screws. Which
it took him out of watching it. I dove into this earlier today because I was confused about it.
It is fascinating listening to his reasoning behind all of that, but
dog, this is the dumbest argument you can possibly have.
No, it is
idiotic.
There are obviously gigantic buildings made of common building materials throughout every aspect of Star Wars. The fact that this guy is getting so hung up on bricks and screws, and obviously bricks kind of was a theme because they in Andor, the dead people, they get like
Put in the
made
bricks,
into,
right.
they get like, you know, ground into these bricks, basically their ashes. And like that was the thing I think that started everything, was like, they have bricks in Star Wars. Like, oh, this is the dumbest thing ever. They literally made up this brick thing so they could do this, like, you know, death ceremony thing. And it's like,
yeah,
bro,
dog, that's how shows work.
What the heck do you think literally every building in every Star Wars show is made out of?
Right.
Yeah. What do you think, dude? Like, I don't understand how this was this, out of all things you could have taken from the show, this is what you got hung up on.
You're mad about
that. And I think the main theme that he's getting at is that, like, it took him out of the fantastical element that is Star Wars, but like, that's what makes this show good, is that it does not rely on Star Wars elements to make it good. And say what you will about Obi-Wan, I loved it. It's fantastic. But they leaned hard on Star Wars fan service to make that show work. And I absolutely loved that. I loved it because of that.
But then there's examples where that doesn't work, like Boba Fett.
Exactly,
like,
exactly.
You can fail miserably at that too.
What Andor did is they took out that element and they made a good show without, and sure, there are obviously so many Star Wars references and Easter eggs that you can obviously tell this is a part of the Star Wars universe. It's not like they completely, you know, went off canon and ridiculous on their own type stuff, but they are not relying on that to make it a good show. It's a good show standing on its own. And I told Max this because he initially was going to be on this episode for the Guardians holiday special. But I think this is going to appeal to people who are not that into Star Wars. I think this is going to be a really good launching off point for somebody who's like, sure, sci-fi is not really my thing, but like, I'm willing to give it a go. I think this is going to be a great entry point. And that's where I kind of want to start this conversation, because Robbie, I know you've been vocal on our podcast that you are not the hugest Star Wars guy in the world. You enjoy it. You still consume, you know, everything that has been coming out. So what are your thoughts on this show? I don't think we've had you on for any of the previous like Andor review episodes. So why don't you just give us a general, like, how do you think this show went? What was your appeal level to it?
I really enjoyed it. I think there was some difficulty to follow some of the storylines because this wasn't like just one story. Obviously, like you had everything going on with Cassie, and you had everything going on with like the Empire and what they're looking for. You had everything going on with the lady's name. I'm terrible with the names.
Val.
The rich lady that like
Mon Mothma.
Yeah, with like her storyline was probably the one where I was like, I was least interested in that one, even though it did have like major implications. But that's where it kind of simmered down for me a little bit. It was like, I have these storylines I'm really interested in, and then there's some storylines I'm like meh about. And then I also didn't know how long the series was, because I honestly, because all these other Disney Plus shows have been like 6 episodes, I kept thinking after the first couple episodes where they're like, we need to go rob this whatever place, like that was going to be the end of the season. And I was like, oh, that was pretty cool. And I was like, oh, they're still going. Oh, they're still going. Oh,
that's actually, Mark actually said that a while back. He was like, he said he stopped watching after episode 6 because he thought that was it. He thought that was the end of the season.
Right.
That's funny.
So yeah, because I thought that was the end of the season. And then I thought when they got out of that prison, that was going to be the end of the season. So I was like, they kept like going, and I was like, this is just like kept surprising me. And I was like, I'm not mad about it, but it's like, I just don't know when this ends. And
where are we going with this?
Right. And like, shout out to J-Buck. J-Buck, you can follow him on Twitter and TikTok and YouTube and all those things.
Good friend of the Infinity Bros podcast.
Good friend of the Infinity Bros. But he said that if you cut this up into like 3 or 4 like sessions of watching like you watch it in like stages, like a movie, almost like a 3-part movie. Like you watch the first like 4 or 5 episodes that are like them going to that refinery and getting like the fat stacks or whatever. The heist. You watch that, and then you watch the next part, and then you watch the end part. Like that's the best way to probably view Andor, because they do a lot in one season. So I really enjoyed it. I gave it a 5.5 out of 6 just because of those storylines that I'm just kind of like meh on. But there's so much good going on with it, and like the writing and the acting is so freaking good.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, loved it.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's awesome. I absolutely love this show. For those of you guys who have listened to our previous Andor reviews, you know that Mark and I were 100% all in on this show. I don't expect everybody to absolutely love this show because, I mean, number one, everybody's entitled to their opinion. So like you do you, like if you don't like it, that's fine. No worries. Number two, I think there are some things about this show that would make it hard to watch. Number one is those first 4-5 episodes are a slow burn. And that's where I heard the most people say,
yeah,
I'm not into this. I haven't even watched past that because these episodes are so slow moving. And I think they were, number one. And number two, I think, honestly, you sometimes need to get past that slow burn to get a good payoff, because that was a problem with these Marvel shows, is that we didn't have any, like, the payoff in all of them was not great because we didn't really have a whole lot of buildup to episode 6. And every single time I was like, how are they going to finish this season in a satisfying way? And most of the time they didn't really nail it.
It wasn't.
They left something to be desired. And I think that was something that Andor did really well. But again, those first few episodes were slow burn for sure. So, Jarret, what were your thoughts on Andor kind of in a general sense?
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed this. Rogue One to me is like peak Star Wars. And I love like
Rogue One.
Anything Star Wars, I eat it up. And so I was excited for this, and I think it paid off. I'll still give it like a 5 out of 6. I think there was a lot of things that just didn't finish off well for me. I think as a whole, it did a lot to talk about, like sort of the underground and the more military, like rebellion style of like Star Wars, which I think a lot of people, that's what they're drawn to, is sort of the cool like political and guerrilla warfare aspect of it, which Rogue One did phenomenally. Andor to me struggled a little bit to land the plane at the end. And like you said, there were parts that were slow burns and whatnot, but there was a lot of things that didn't resolve well. Like the I can't swim, right? Like, I'm like, this dude would at least try. You know what I mean? Like, somebody would have lifted him up. And then everything that happened with Bix was so gut-wrenchingly terrible. Like, I felt sick after they showed her, like, listening to those kids dying. And they don't really resolve that. Like, you feel so uncomfortable at the end. And you're supposed to be okay with, like, she gets saved by her friends. But I'm like, nah, she's traumatized forever. And, like, maybe that's a season 2 thing that they deal with. But to me, every time she was on screen after that, I just felt, like, uncomfortable for her. And I'm like, man, like, she doesn't get an ending that's satisfying.
Yeah, I don't think her story is over. Because,
I agree.
You're right. You're right. If they don't come back to that, it is like hey, she needs help, guys.
Yeah. And obviously, like that, so what's her face? Cinta ended up shanking that doctor. So the doctor that was doing all that stuff is currently dead. But you gotta imagine that they take that technique and they're continue to use that, like the Empire. And that's gotta be a theme in season 2 throughout, because I think you guys are hit the nail on the head. Like, there's gotta be more to that storyline. I think that's the goal, Jarret, was they wanted you to feel uncomfortable. And that's why they kind of hid what she heard for so long in the show. You know, like, they didn't really give us a whole lot of like, that's what I was wondering when that all went down. I was like, well, what the heck did she hear? Like, I want to know what messed her up that bad that she is, like, physically unable to even function. Like, she cannot do anything herself. Like, she is completely incapacitated until Cassian comes along and helps her out. But that's got to be a theme in season 2 for sure. And I think you guys are right. There's so many storylines that are interwoven that it was a little bit hard to keep track of all of them and be invested in all of them for sure. Because I agree, Robbie, that Mon Mothma storyline is probably my least favorite.
That one's not my least favorite. My least favorite is the one where they made the one chick and the Empire guy and the Empire chick like have like a relationship where he's like obsessed with her. Or whatever.
Okay, so I wanted to talk about this.
We'll talk about this.
Yeah.
Cyril Karn, baby, the Star Wars stalker.
Yeah.
whatever that is, like that. Like, and I don't know any like besides what the show shows, but like the fact that that's even a storyline and they keep going with it, I'm just like, what the hell is this? I don't give a crap at all about this.
Got to be something in season 2. There has to be more to that story because
it feels like the most forced thing ever. It's like this show is great, and like the what did we get? 12 episodes, like 12 episodes. They're all great, but you could have cut out like these 30 minutes of this entire storyline, and I would not have noticed, and nothing would have changed.
So I had this theory, I had this headcanon that like this was just a dude who was really committed to his job, and I thought that like through this process he would learn that like the Empire wasn't this shiny golden thing that he thought he was, and maybe the world wasn't black and white, and Cassian Andor wasn't really a bad guy. And I thought he would end up being like a rebel or something in the end.
No.
And then they just made him like creepier and creepier.
That's what Mark said too. And I was like, this is the biggest Empire lapdog I've ever seen in my entire life. Like this guy literally is begging to join the
that's
ISB.
Why I thought it would be interesting to flip it on its head. But instead they're just like, he's a pervert. Like he's just a pervert.
Okay, so number one, that the confrontation and this is not the finale. This is probably I don't know, episode 10 or something, when he confronts Deidre in the ISB like headquarters city or whatever.
Yep.
That was the creepiest moment of that show. And that was absolutely intentional. Like they want it to be creepy. For what reason, I have no clue yet, but they are doing a great job of making this guy be just the nastiest, scummiest dude.
Yeah, for real.
On the face of the Star Wars like universe. Like I think this guy might be my most hated character in all of Star Wars at this point. And I'm absolutely invested to see what happens to him in season 2. So
Jar Jar Binks is thrilled right now that someone
Jar Jar Binks is like
we gotta get the taste of Jar Jar out of their mouth. Let's just throw in a pervert. Like
oh my god,
they'll forget all about it.
But that was bone chilling, that little stalker confrontation that he has with Deidre. And obviously that's not a pleasant thing that you want to see in Star Wars, but I actually am interested in this storyline. Was it my favorite? No, definitely not. But I'm interested to see where this goes. So it's funny you say that.
Do not care at all.
The Mon Mothma stuff I do get, because that kind of brought me back to Attack of the Clones. Like there was so much politics, Star Wars politics in that movie that made a lot of people, and including myself, think it was probably the most boring Star Wars movie out of the 9, major movies.
I had to rewatch that as an adult to realize that movie was really boring, because all I remember as a kid was the last 30 minutes, which are exhilarating.
Right, like the arena fights, the lightsaber fights,
the arena fights. Yeah, and then they're flying in those spaceships and like.
But the rest of the whole movie is literally just politics. They're talking politics the whole time.
It's terrible.
But that kind of reminded me of that. Like, there's a whole lot of underground politics going on in this show.
I love this for 2 reasons. One, I think anyone with the last name Skarsgård belongs on a screen.
Oh,
their family is just oozing talent. Are they related? I assume so, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's like a family.
And the other thing is like, I've always thought about this is how does the Emperor not just crush the entire Senate at the point in which he takes over? Like that always was in the back of my mind is like, why does he allow these people to speak opposition against him? I think what really drove it home was the manifesto that he listens to at the very end, where he talks about like oppression isn't a natural thing. Tyranny requires effort. And I think all of the political stuff kind of ties into that, where like the Emperor obviously is like immensely powerful and has all these vast resources at his hand. But if he goes too hard, too fast, he breaks and pushes the rebellion even further. And so her push and pull of like maintaining the rebellion without being found out for what she is, I think was more interesting to me even than a lot of these other storylines. So like, that's one of the few parts that actually did really resonate with me.
And I think that probably speaks more to you and I and probably Zane and Mark are in that category as well, being the uber nerd Star Wars dudes that love poring over the Star Wars encyclopedias that I mentioned in a couple episodes ago. Like, we're like those guys that are like, oh my gosh, like all this background Star Wars information is so cool. And everybody else is kind of like, oh, that's kind of weird. And I don't really like that very much. But yeah, I was invested in that for that very reason as well. But I can definitely see where that was kind of the more dull, one of the more dull storylines in this.
Have you guys, okay, this is an internet meme thing now. Have you ever heard of Glup Shido? This whole thing?
I vaguely remember hearing about that.
No. Okay, so the big thing was like people who had never seen Star Wars before during the time where like Mandalorian was at peak. They talked about like how weird it was seeing people go nuts over these characters that they don't know about. And the joke was like people would get excited when Glup Shido was on screen. And it was just like these made up Star Wars characters and be like, oh yeah, I loved him in like issue whatever of the Star Wars comics. I have never resonated so much with something in my life. Like when Black Crimson was on screen.
Oh my gosh.
I lost my mind. And like that's just a throwaway character from one comic run, you know? But like that's, to me, that's Star Wars. It's just like
Jarret
the super dumb deep lore.
Freak out if they made like a Dr. Aphra show. Like
you have no idea.
Absolutely lose his mind.
I would sell. I kid you not. I would sell my car and go fly to the premiere of this TV series. I would stay at the hotel outside of wherever they were premiering this TV show.
Jarret,
and I would
without a car, you're not getting anywhere any fast. It's like 800 miles. I got to the airport it's for you.
Yeah. James will carry me. It'll be great.
James got you. It's all good.
But that's the Star Wars that I love. Like I'm so invested in this franchise.
Yeah, and that's where I think this show did a fantastic job of interweaving their non-reliance on Star Wars within the Star Wars universe. Is it within the Star Wars universe? And it's not essential really to the Star Wars universe, but you can't really separate the Star Wars universe from this show.
Was the word Jedi brought up ever in this series?
To be honest, I don't think it was. I don't remember it being brought up. That's actually a fascinating observation. I love that.
That's the Force. I don't think they talked about the Force either.
They didn't talk about the Force. Yeah. There's nothing like classic Star Wars brought up in Andor.
Right.
It's kind of cool.
And I think that's why a lot of people don't like it, because it didn't play on a lot of those things that people are all about, you know? And and I understand.
But I think there is a weird disconnect between people that really liked Rogue One and people that really didn't like Rogue One. For whatever reason, there are people out there that didn't like Rogue One, and they are, they're loud and obnoxious, and those same people are the same people that are loud and obnoxious.
Wait, Star Wars
Andor.
Fans?
Star Wars fans.
No.
Star Wars fans. Yep.
Wow. We're the worst. Honestly, we're just like, can we talk about toxic fandoms? It's got to be like, we're way up there.
I mean, sure. Star Wars is definitely number one, but the MCU is fast becoming.
The MCU is growing quickly.
You mean that MCU?
Oh boy,
their woke agenda.
The MCU is growing quickly when you can't criticize the movies without getting attacked. Like, not even criticizing, like us giving like Black Panther to like a 5 is considered like blasphemy. Yeah, it's like that's controversial. Well, we gave it like a 4.2, but it's like. It's not that great. Like, it's okay, but it's not great.
Seen it yet.
Yeah. Well, there you go. It's a 4.2 in my book.
Don't do this to me, Rob.
Oh man, yeah. So okay, to run back to this is me being the Zane. Well, actually, this is
please.
Thumbs of Thunder segment right here.
Yeah, Thumbs of Thunder. Here we go.
Stellan Skarsgård, who appears in Andor, is the father of 8 children, 4 of whom are actors. One of whom is Bill. Right. Who is in it. I'm assuming, and it says that 4 of them are actors. So I'm assuming they're the other Skarsgårds that are intermingled throughout our whole media consumption. So here we go. Alexander, Gustav, Sam, Bill, Aja, and Walter. Born his last kid was born in 1995.
Those are some dope names.
Dang. He's Swedish, so Swedish names. Stellan Skarsgård.
I want to be a Skarsgård.
For real.
Can I thumbs of thunder real quick? because this actually bothered me. So I watched Rogue One with my students as like a fun, like, there's nothing to do the week of Thanksgiving, so we just watched a movie. And there's a point where they're in the jail cell. So they were captured by Saw Gerrera's forces, and they're in the jail cell, and they're talking about the prison. And he goes, "Relax, Captain. We've been in worse cages than this one." And Cassian says, "This is the first time for me," or he says, like, "This is the first for me." And I'm like,
you mentioned that, yeah.
Dog, your whole prison sequence was like the central part of the series.
That's the reason you decided to join.
He's just
the
casually
Rebel Alliance.
Yeah, I've never been to prison. Like, what?
Definitely just
I don't know if he's pretending to be undercover, but that one like throwaway line bothered me so much because I'm like, you watch people die. Like, that was traumatic for me to watch this secondhand. And you're like, never been to prison. I don't know.
That's got to be that nobody expected an Andor show to be created.
Sure.
Probably not even Diego Luna or any of the writers of the show.
Right.
Honestly.
Is there any other medium that has Cassian Andor in it?
No, he was created for Rogue One, wasn't he? I thought he was created.
He is an original character, Rogue One. I guarantee he's been in stuff after then in comics.
Yeah, sure.
But there was he wasn't in any of the books like before Rogue One.
No, not to my knowledge, but I'm not like Mark is the one that actually reads Star Wars novels and stuff, so he'd probably be the guy to thumbs of thunder us on that one. But
that's a really weird thing to say. Thumbs of thunder us. Please don't say it in that way. That sounds weird.
Counterpoint.
Right, we got
counterpoint though. Please do.
Actually us. The actually is just as good as the name as
Mark's gonna thumbs of thunder us.
Well, you were the one that made it weird, so
it's Mark though, so it's already weird.
Everything's weird about Mark.
He's just listening to this, just pumping fists in the air,
giggling.
Yeah,
just giggling. Yes, doing his little evil Power Ranger villain laugh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyways, to that effect, I absolutely loved Andor. I give this show a 6 out of 6. That didn't change from my last, I think, review of when Mark and I reviewed it back in episode 9 or 10, maybe. I thought they did a fantastic job. I think there were definitely things. This is not a perfect show by any means. There were definitely some things that they could have done better, but wow, this might make my top 3 TV shows of 2022.
It's great. It's great. Star Wars.
It's fantastic. It's way better than I thought it was going to be. This was not on my radar for even my top 6 TV shows of 2022, because for those of you guys who don't know the Infinity Bros podcast, we do an award ceremony at the end of the year. We do pick our Stan Lees, and our main categories are our top movies of 2022, top TV shows of 2022. And so we pick and rank our top 6 of each category. And I was like not expecting Andor to be on that list or close at all. But here we are. It totally surprised me and a lot of people. And Star Wars and Disney are confident in this show because they aired this on actual TV as well, which they have not done for
Did
any
they really?
of the. Yeah, they aired it on several of ABC and several of their other network channels.
I feel like this show, I was kind of thinking about this. This show, I feel like, has a chance to be, I could be totally off base, but like a Stargate SGU or whatever, however you say, like, there's people out there that just like sci-fi just for sci-fi because they like sci-fi. Like Andor fits this is just sci-fi. Like people like it. It's espionage and it's like, people really like this stuff, and it doesn't have to be like Jedis and like good guys always win. Cause like, it's kind of a gray area. Like they're kind of in a gray area. Andor, like Cassian Andor is in
it's kind of more like
a little bit
general sci-fi Star Wars than actual Star Wars is.
I want to get a read of the room and like a temperature feel for you, because I feel like everybody talked about Mandalorian. Everybody talked about the beginning of Boba Fett and then quickly petered off. But like, is the average person, not somebody who's really deep into like pop culture or watching Disney stuff like we are they talking about this? Because to my knowledge, like, if you're not super into this stuff, I have not heard people talking about Andor, and I feel like they should be.
Mm-hmm. I think they are not, number one, because you kind of do have to have a general understanding of Star Wars to
have a little bit
probably
of
enjoy this show.
Yeah.
I will say though that filmmaking wise, this show is also fantastic. And I think that this potentially could be one of those shows that, gets nominated for, what's the TV show one? Emmys? Is that
Golden Globe or is it Emmys?
I think it's Emmys.
I don't remember.
I have
the
no
TV
idea.
Show one is, but
I don't care about
this. Is one of those like underrated ones that is probably going to get nominated for a few things. It's probably not going to win a whole bunch, but like generally Star Wars, Marvel stuff doesn't really do that because it's just catering to popular media. Yeah. It's not necessarily at the top of the filmmaking, cinematography.
Okay,
like
slight
class.
Counterpoint to that. Mandalorian was like
Mandalorian was fantastic.
The most
and that did
groundbreaking.
Win a bunch.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
and that did win a bunch of awards, as it should have, because they are using innovative like technology to do a lot of their filmmaking, which I'm assuming they probably used for Andor and for all of their Disney Plus shows. But
I think the disadvantage that something like Andor has is that the Mandalorian has. Even though it's not Boba Fett, people know what Boba Fett looks like. So you slap that on something and people are instantly interested. And then you throw in
Yoda.
Yeah, well then you throw in Baby Yoda and it's like, oh, this sells itself. Like it's not even hard. Like Book of Boba Fett sells itself, even though it's trash.
Garbage TV.
It sells itself because people know who it is. Kenobi sells itself because it's freaking Obi-Wan Kenobi.
And it's Ewan
and
McGregor.
Darth Vader. Right? Yeah, it's like it's you. Yeah. And this is Andor and Cassian Andor, and you're just like, that's just a guy. And there's not like a funny, there's not a funny, cute character besides like a little robot guy.
And it already came in at a disadvantage because most Star Wars fans were also like, why do we need this show? Like, that was kind of our vibe before this all went down. Like, why is this show necessary? Should I even be interested or invest in this show? Right. And so I think that's the reason why it went under the radar. And I think it will start gaining traction, especially when those like award seasons start popping up and people are going to look back at it and be like, oh, maybe I should go check it out. And I think it'll become a Star Wars cult classic. Like if you're in the Star Wars know, and you'll know about Andor and you'll be like, oh my gosh, like that. Yeah, that was fantastic.
Yeah.
I think it won't hit like the general public. Unfortunately, I don't think it'll really get that big that it will become a household show that everybody knows about.
Right.
Like unfortunately it came in already at a disadvantage. So it probably won't be enough to overcome that. Well, guys, I did want to do one more thing before we close out this show. And that is, now that we've got 4 live action Disney Plus Star Wars shows, I wanted to have us rank them in a top 5.
We're going in 3. You're entering the top 5 on the Infinity Bros podcast. Starting now.
It's actually top 4 because there's only 4 shows, but it goes great with the bumper if I say top 5. So top 5 is our water cooler discussion that we usually have a list to rank and that we haven't done for a really, really long time. So I'm actually kind of glad that we're getting into one today.
I miss the old episodes.
I know.
Hot or Snot and top 5.
Those are the good old days. We did a top 5.
There's been so much content coming out that we don't even have time to do.
Bro, we had 4 major TV shows going on at the same time this summer. Like so much content that we've had to cover.
I have a little bits I want to talk about before the end, but we'll circle back to that.
Little bits. We'll circle back. Anyways, top 5 or 4. We're gonna rate our Disney Plus Star Wars shows. So we've got Mandalorian, we've got Book of Boba Fett, Obi-Wan, and we've got Andor now. So I'd say let's just go ahead and rank them all right at the same time. So Jarret, why don't you go ahead?
Everyone talk over everyone and go at the same time.
Everybody, right now.
Yeah,
right.
So just give all 4 at the same time.
Yeah,
I feel like our lists are going to be very similar. Besides maybe the 1 and 2, I feel like we're going to have maybe.
So okay,
probably
number 4. To nobody's surprises, Book of Boba Fett.
I think that's going to be the general consensus.
Number 3. Dang, I feel like these two are so close. I think it's got to be Andor. I think it.
Ooh.
I think Kenobi just slightly edges it out, not by much though. And then number 1 is obviously Mandalorian. I think it just did too much too well.
Gotcha.
Robbie, where are you sitting?
Boba Fett's last because it's terrible. Kenobi's 3 for me, and that one's, even just thinking back on it, like there's the amazing fight with Darth Vader and Kenobi that like is amazing, but the rest of it's kind of like young Princess Leia running through the forest with the terrible robbers that get stopped by trees.
You're right.
And like there's so much bad in that show. Yeah. You're just like, oh, guys, you could have just made this 2 episodes and like everyone would have been happy. Like that should have been like a holiday special. Yeah. Make this an hour long
holiday
and like
special.
Let's move on. My number 2 is Andor. Obviously, we've been talking about it. It's a great show. And Mandalorian gets the edge because I think without Mandalorian, I don't think we get any of these other shows. I think Mandalorian kind of set the precedent that we like. Star Wars is a wanted commodity, not just the movies. Like people want to know about like the entire Star Wars universe, and Mandalorian did that and is still doing that to the best capacity out of all these Star Wars mediums.
Yeah, I think you definitely got a good point there. And my list, number 4, Book of Boba Fett. Nobody's surprised.
Amazing.
I think there were some good things that they did, but holy moly, that was a directorial jumble. Like they just, I don't know, they didn't know where they were going with it, and that really, really hurt it.
No, that show sucked.
Some good things, but mostly not good things. My number 3 is also Obi-Wan Kenobi, Robbie. I gave it a 6 out of 6, and I absolutely love it. Like Ewan McGregor is my favorite Star Wars actor / character of all time. Absolutely adore Obi-Wan, but I think you're right. They definitely had some elements that didn't really fit that show very well, and the story itself, it kind of just felt like, did we need this? And the only reason I say yes, we needed it, because Ewan McGregor was willing to do it, because I was like, I want everything that I can get of that guy. So, and I absolutely loved it. Not super crazy about a lot of the directions they took. My number 2 is actually Mandalorian. I absolutely loved it. Again, 6 out of 6. And 2 and 1 are the toughest for me. I think Obi-Wan's definitely below both Mandalorian and Andor. To me, I might honestly just be on an Andor high right now. Like I'm so pumped from this show being so much better than I expected it to be, that I'm conflating it more than it probably should be. But I just was so enthralled and enamored by Andor and all the things that it did that I was not expecting. I didn't know anything about this show coming into it, didn't really care that much. And it somehow made me think that it's the best Star Wars live action TV show that we've gotten so far. So
Isaac,
it did some things right.
Because you are the human version of a golden retriever and have these sad, sweet puppy dog eyes, and like, if Max had said what you just said to me, we would be tearing him apart. But because it's you, you get a pass. Fine. But
I actually am very interested to see where Mark's list would be, because he held Andor in a very high regard as well when I was chatting with him. So we'll have to.
Mark's is always list. It's always tough to think.
Mark is hard to
try
pin
to get
down.
Mark's
you can't pin him down.
Tough.
You can't pin him down.
Mark,
you think one thing,
but I feel like that's also
the
the same with Max too. You might think you know what Max is going to say, and then he'll just go the complete opposite way.
But at least you know that he's going one way or the other. Like with Max, it's like he's all in or he hates it.
Oh yeah,
like there's no.
There are very few threes in for Max. Like
Yeah.
There's almost no 3s. And if it is a 3, it's really a 1 because of how he talks about it.
Yeah, right. And then there's Mark.
Can't wait for him to edit this.
Mark, who has watched every single movie under the sun, who gives like the middle of the road movies 5s and 6s, and then the fantastic movies that everybody loves, he's like, that's a 3.5. And we're all like,
yeah, it doesn't make sense.
This dude was about to hunt down the creators of Rings of Power because he wanted to punch some hobbits. Like, Mark is so chaotic
mad about them. Yeah. He is chaos, dude. It's wild.
That show was that show was a slow burn that paid off immensely.
That was a slow burn as well, for real. Absolutely. But yeah, man, at this point, Mandalorian was fantastic. I will say, I think there were.
You guys are still hung up on the spider episode.
Dude, there's filler stuff in that show. Like that,
still hung up on one filler episode.
There's filler stuff in the show, and I still like that episode. I'm not saying it was a terrible episode, but
and you're the guy that loves Clone Wars, and you're mad at one filler episode in Mandalorian.
Oh, Clone Wars is a mess, dude. I absolutely love Clone Wars.
Like you can't even watch Clone Wars straight without.
Dude, I gave Mandalorian a 6 out of 6. I'm just saying, like Andor,
you just
currently has my attention, and when Mandalorian season 3 comes out, it'll probably change your mind. It'll probably switch back to Mandalorian.
You're gonna realize you were wrong, and you're gonna look back on this
episode and then Andor season 2 will come out, and I'll switch back to Andor again.
And Ahsoka will come out. Like we're gonna have a tough 5 list.
True.
But except for number 5, Boba Fett will always be last.
Yeah,
we'll always
at
agree.
The bottom of our hearts.
Mandalorian and Andor are neck and neck for me. Like they're so close. Like I absolutely love them both. So
Isaac is a puppy dog, right? Like one person walks into the room and then like, he's my favorite, and wags his little tail. And then another person walks into the room and he's like, that's my favorite.
You're not wrong. Every time. So sometimes I'll like, just for kicks and giggles, go listen to some of our old episodes of the Infinity Bros podcast. I feel like every major movie that comes out, I rank so high.
Yeah.
And then I go back and I'm like, gosh, that movie wasn't that good.
I think that's part of like actually becoming a serious like film reviewer, is being like, okay, I have to come down from this high, look at this realistically. Is this actually that
critically?
Because we give out a lot of 5s and a lot of like 5.5s for movies.
A lot of 6s, honestly. I feel like we give out a lot of 6s.
We are very positive. Maybe we should
Infinity Bros podcast.
We should go the other way, get everything 2s.
Just be angry Star Wars fans. I love it. If it's not perfect, it's a 2.
That's what's
here's the thing.
Things trend on Twitter these days. So
that guy bringing up bricks and screws on Twitter. He's trending right now.
He made Robbie search him on the internet, even though he had no idea who he was beforehand.
Found that guy on Reddit. Didn't even know what was going on. Never heard of that guy before.
Do we just go full like Attack of the Fandom and just like women in Star Wars? Are you kidding me?
No, we need to attack the MCU. Even though that's what we're based off of, we should just attack the MCU.
MCU. Please say it right.
That's dangerous.
Not my Captain America.
Not my Captain.
Oh boy. Jeez.
It felt wrong saying it. My skin is crawling right now.
Jarret's grossed out.
That was a joke.
Guys, just to clarify.
A joke.
Canceled on the internet.
Well, guys,
this will be on YouTube.
It has been a wonderful episode. Make sure you go.
Hey, hold on. Stop. We got to do this little bits.
Whoa.
Oh,
stop.
Little bits.
Okay. Little bits. Okay. This hurts to talk about because this is not a happy little bits. This is a sad little bits.
Oh,
this is a little bit of sadness.
Sad little bit.
Ending on a negative note. I don't like that.
That's silly. We gotta talk about it because it's important, and we're all like, okay. Once I talk about it, you'll be like, okay, I understand.
You should talk about it then.
Jason David Frank.
Oh yeah,
passed away, and this is. I gotta say, out of all the celebrities, this is probably the one that hit me the hardest because I may not be as big of a Power Rangers fan as Max and Mark, but I watched the hell out of that series.
Yeah.
So the Little Bits was, and I think it's based off of a commercial that he volunteered to do for a comic run called Shattered Grid. And if you know nothing about this, basically there's an alternate version of the Green and White Ranger from Power Rangers who becomes the villain and takes over all these other dimensions.
Lord Drakkon, right?
Yeah. The series is called Shattered Grid, and it was immensely popular, probably one of Boom's like top selling comic series. And he did this live action trailer. And I cannot pin down like the source of this rumor or what happened, but there is a rumor that had things not come to pass the way they'd had last week, had we not lost Jason David Frank, that we would have had a live action Shattered Grid movie in run with the recent, 2017 Power Rangers, which would have brought together as much of the original cast as possible. Obviously, I can't think of the actress's name, the Yellow Ranger, played Trina.
Oh yeah, I can't remember her name either. She also passed away.
Anyways, obviously, like, we want to talk about how much of our childhood this guy was, and like, just honestly, if you watch videos back, just the most genuine dude. Like, talk about somebody who was excited for their franchise and loved the fans. Like, he was it 110%. And so, obviously, like, condolences to anybody this affects, which for a lot of us is like, this one hit really home. But man, it's honestly like, support your heroes, talk to the people around you who are struggling. And man, what a killer that we couldn't get this, that we weren't able to give him that, and yeah. That's the little bit.
If you want to see him in that persona, I believe Bat in the Sun did make a fighting episode where he becomes Lord Drakkon and he fights. Is it Ryu?
Yeah.
Gosh, who is it? Or is it Scorpion? He fights somebody. Check out Bat in the Sun. They worked with him a lot actually and made a lot of like White Ranger versus episodes.
And he did the YouTube promo for Shattered Grid, so check that out as well. And honestly, like, go check out all of the other Power Rangers casts on Twitter, because they're like, it's just been the most heartfelt outpouring of like love and sincere appreciation for him from his fellow co-stars and fans as well. So like, man, there's a community out there who's mourning with you. And guys, if you're like, please reach out to the people that you love. And if you're hurting, obviously talk to somebody about that. Like, you are valuable. And this was honestly a stranger to all of us, but still impacted us in such a way. So like, there are people who are connected to you that you don't even know how much you mean to them. So if you're in this place right now and you're hurting, like, reach out to people around you and make sure you talk to your friends about this stuff.
Yeah.
Anyways, not to bring us down, but yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Heartbreaking stuff. But yeah, I mean, please reach out to people around you. And if you feel like you don't have anybody to reach out to, I mean, we are here and we have a Discord that you can hang out with us in. You can message us, separately on Discord, or email us at infinitybrospodcast@gmail.com. We'd absolutely love to connect with you and connect you with our community. So yeah, absolutely what Jarret said. You're loved and your life is worth living. So make sure you connect with somebody if you're feeling those kind of things. But yeah, heartbreaking news for sure. Well, guys, it sucks to end on such a negative.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I should have maybe not.
But I am glad that we ended up getting to do a top 5. That just brought me back.
Good.
So thank you guys. Thank you guys for bringing us back to the roots of the Infinity Bros podcast today. Jarret, thanks so much for being on with us tonight, man.
Got you, babe.
And Robbie, it's always a pleasure.
Happy to be here. I'm ready to go to bed.
Get some sleep,
go to bed, get some sleep, get healed up, and get right back on that horse, because we're going to have another episode of the Infinity Bros podcast soon. So make sure you check out the Infinity Bros podcast at theinfinitybros.com or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thank you so much for listening. We appreciate all of our listeners, wherever you're listening, however you're listening. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day. We love you 3000. Bye. Thanks for tuning in to the Infinity Bros podcast. You can find the Infinity Bros on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitch, and YouTube at The Infinity Bros. You can also check out our website at theinfinitybros.com for links, reviews, and sweet merch. Feel free to send us listener feedback via social media or email at infinitybrospodcast@gmail.com.